thought I had it hidden. So I like to start on time because your time
Okay,
is so precious.
Yes.
So thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're so excited to have Elin Hilderbrand with us to talk about her winter series, which is not necessarily new, but it's so timely and so perfect to be talking about in December. So before we get started, just want to thank Jennifer Crowley for all her help with Instagram and everything she does for this group. She's been amazing this year. And for all of you mothers joining us tonight to listen to Elin, and also if you can't join us, thank you for watching the YouTube recording that we will post later. So thank you for joining after the fact. And I just wanted to personally take a moment again to thank Elin for all she has done for this group, because I know there's a lot of new members on here tonight. And for those of you that don't know, Elin is really kind of how these authors chat started, I think last fall, really in the height of the pandemic. I reached out to Elin after she had joined the group to see if she'd do a chat to promote her book at the time, which was, gosh, I don't even really remember.
Troubles. I think it was, we did the Third Paradise book.
Yes. And so that's really what instigated our chats, and Elin was really instrumental in getting the ball rolling. She put us in touch with our next author, which was Jane Rosen, and then Kristen Hanna, and then from there it really exploded. So I really, really want to thank Elin for all she's done. You may not know, but she has been a huge advocate of this group amongst her peers and other authors. And so it's really thanks to you that we've had 31 amazing chats this year, and it was only fitting that we end with you this year. So
thank you. I mean, you do. I just want to say, you guys, Jennifer does such a great job administering, and you know, the job has obviously grown because of like the magic. And I just want to say, like, I started spinning 2 years ago when I came to Boston. I had never spun before. I went to a studio and I did something here in Boston called the Handlebar I would go to. And then during the pandemic, when I was in St. John, I thought, should I buy a Peloton? Should I buy a Peloton? And I did. I pulled the trigger. And of course it said 7 weeks to deliver, right? And so I was like, oh shoot, I'm going to get home from St. John. The bike's not going to be there till the 1st of June. And then like magic, they said somebody on Nantucket canceled the bike, and I got it the very next day. So, and I've been just such a devoted Peloton person. I love the bike so much. Here in Boston, I don't have a bike, and I'm here for 6 weeks doing my revisions on my summer book. And I approached a high-end hotel. Thank God the general manager reads my novels. She's like, we would be honored if you would just use our gym whenever you want, for as long as you want. We have one bike, and only twice, you guys, have I gone up and somebody else has been on it. So it has been such a win for me. But anyway, I want to thank Jennifer for doing the crazy admin job on this page, and for all of you for reading. And what kind of great community are the Peloton Mom book group, because I'm able to recommend it to, you know, Taylor Jenkins Reads and all of the writers that you've met. A lot of them I've reached out to and just said, this is worth doing. And that's basically all I had to say.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. It's so awesome. So let's jump right in and talk about the Quins. I have to say, I read these kind of right when they came out, and in prepping, I don't know, I fell in love with them all over again. I forgot how much I adored this family. And so I guess my first question I want to ask you is, what prompted you to write a kind of a winter Christmas holiday themed series of books when you're kind of so famous for your summer beach reads? What inspired you?
So in the summer of 2013, I was writing a novel called The Matchmaker. No, it was the summer of 2000. Yeah, it was the summer of 2013. So writing a novel called The Matchmaker. And my publisher called and said, we've had a holiday book fall off our list. Can you write a Christmas book in 4 weeks? And they needed it by October 1st. And I said, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm like, The Matchmaker was like sort of this very emotional book. And I said, I can't I said, but I'll write one next year. So the second that I finished writing The Matchmaker, I dove in and started thinking about this family that owned an inn, and it was going to be a blended family. And I wrote sort of a synopsis, and I decided that I wanted it to be a trilogy. So I pitched the trilogy to my publisher, and my publisher says, I'm sorry, I think you misunderstood. We only wanted one book. So I was like, okay, fine. So I wrote Winter Street and handed it in and gave it no ending. And they loved it. And then immediately follows a contract for 2 more books, Winter Stroll and Winter Storms. Further irony, in the summer of 2016, my editor calls and says, what do I have to do to get you to write a 4th Winter Street book? And I said, I didn't want to, because I had really felt like after Winter Storms, I had sort of put the series, the trilogy, to bed, and I didn't want to revisit it. Although I did have certain strings that I thought, okay, I could, elaborate and take the story a little bit further. So I said, okay, I'll do it, but I really want a contract for 3 books set in the Caribbean, which again, my editor really didn't want to give me. But she did. And the Paradise series was born. So the Winter Street series and the Paradise series have always been sort of intertwined in that way.
Oh, that's interesting. And I'm going to bounce around, I think, because so many people have questions and we have so many people joining tonight, and I already just heard that the Zoom might be full. Is there plans for a 5th?
No. So okay. There are not plans for a 5th. I've had a really hard time selling it, getting anyone in Hollywood to take notice. Would be true of all of my catalog. I have 6 things in production just as of this fall. There's a dude in Hollywood, a producer named Mark Ross. He is obsessed with this series, and he has an overall deal at Netflix, with a company that I now can't remember the name of, production company. And so he has been hounding the Netflix producers. He wants to see it as 4 movies. I don't know how I feel about that. And I don't know how the Netflix people feel about that. I'm not sure it warrants 4 movies. Maybe you guys can chime in and say what you think. I think maybe 2 movies, like part 1, the first 2 books, part 2, the second 2 books, or even a mini series. But he really saw it. He wants to do like an ensemble cast, like the Family Stone, and this guy's obsessed. And a lot of times in Hollywood, all you need is to have one person who's just absolutely driven to do your work. So fingers crossed, but there will not be a 5th book that I can say with relative assuredness. Never say never, but doesn't look like it.
Right. You have other things in the hopper, and then you're retiring.
Yes.
All right. So a lot of questions. I was like, I already know the answers to this because I'm in Massachusetts based as well. So a lot of people don't know what the tradition of Nantucket Stroll is, and is that really a thing? And of course, I had to chime in and say, yes, it's the most magical weekend of the year, and you must travel from wherever. But I wanted you to share a little bit about your experiences and your favorite traditions of Stroll.
Okay, so Stroll is a real thing. It's the weekend after Thanksgiving, which means it's the first weekend in December. It started out, so I've been on Nantucket in 29 years. It started out, or 29 years ago, it was a lot of fur coats from New York City and high heel boots, right? And that was sort of the population of Stroll, and all these fancy women would be in their furs walking up and down Main Street. They close Main Street. Shops have, windows decorated. The trees are lit. It's like a little Christmas village. And then all the restaurants used to stay open, and people would go out for fancy dinners. And it was like this Christmas weekend. One thing, my favorite tradition with Stroll was always the Thursday night of Stroll was something called the Festival of Trees Preview Party in the Whaling Museum. This is described in book 2. Mm-hmm. In the Whaling Museum, there are trees that businesses buy and decorate. So like my architect, for example, the guy who's doing all of my renovations, he always gets a tree, and it's always like really funky, cool, like made of wood, but like different shapes. And so people do different things with their trees. And then the Nantucket Historical Association has a huge party, fancy dress up to go and look at the trees, and everybody drinks, and has all the restaurants have like little stations, and you get little food, and it's see and be seen. I mean, it's probably, I'm going to say it's the biggest party of the year. And I feel sad because of course we haven't had it since 2019. And I miss it. That's my favorite tradition. And it sort of kicks off Stroll. In recent years, Stroll has turned into a little bit of a Christmas carnival feel where people come for the day in their costumes. So they wear like elf costumes, like naughty Santa, naughty Mrs. Claus costumes. And there's a lot of drinking, and, you know, the restaurants, fewer restaurants stay open. So the restaurants that are open get very, very crowded, very loud. The brewery is now like the place to be, totally bonkers. The bookstore at the top of Main Street does signings all day on Saturday. So my second favorite tradition, other than the Festival of Trees, is my signing, which is always the last one on Saturday. Line. Everyone's been drinking all day. It's just completely bananas. But I get to see all of my readers, and they're in festive garb, and it's really, it's quite fun. It's fun. You should experience it.
Everyone should. Well, I have experienced.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
Yeah. It took me like all of December to recover one year, but
yeah, exactly.
It's beautiful. And Santa does come in on the Coast Guard boat, which you write about, which is really cool and definitely so fun and so different. So I think that interesting, again, because I know Nantucket, you do an amazing job of kind of interweaving real Nantucket places with fiction, right? And the Winter Street Inn is a fictional inn, but Nantucket is full of magical, charming inns. So did you base it on a specific inn or not?
That's a really good question. I chose Winter Street because my publisher wanted a title that did not have the word Christmas in it.
Yeah.
And because in theory, they can get a longer selling season. I am in a business, believe it or not. So we were very careful to choose a title that did not have the word Christmas in it. And so we came up with Winter Street. There is a Winter Street on Nantucket. It is 1 block long, you guys. And I am sure that every single person that lives on Winter Street, which is not that many people, hates my guts, because I'm sure the ladies are probably walking up and down Winter Street, possibly knocking on doors like, is this a Winter Street Inn? And I have yet actually to meet anyone that lives on Winter Street who would tell me this, but I feel like they all really hate me. I did not use any particular bed and breakfast as a model, but all of the bed and breakfasts on Nantucket are they're charming. They're set in antique homes. They're gorgeous and sweet, like the Winter Street Inn.
Yes. And then it's interesting too how, like with the restaurants, you weave in real Ventunos in there, Starlights in there, Club Car, but then the bar. The bar is just the bar, right? Yeah. I think it's a fictional place.
Well, the bar is meant to be the box. And
that's what I thought, but you talk about the box.
I just decided to make it the bar. And, you know, I'd have to go back. So I wrote the first book in 2013, and my life was like different then. And I hadn't quite had my fictional Nantucket all boxed out, if that makes sense to you. Like now I might've written it different. I might've just said it at the chicken box, but I did not at that time. So I just called it the bar. So the bar is fictional, but in my head, it was the box.
Yes. Okay. But then you threw me because they referenced going to the box, and I was like,
right. Yeah, it's so confusing. Also, like one thing that I didn't do is I didn't read the other books I didn't read the other books before I started the next one. So like there are some inconsistencies in there. Which if anybody found them, you can tell me and I will say you're absolutely right. There are a couple inconsistencies throughout the series, just like with certain minor characters. And it's because I neglected to read the first and second third book when I wrote number 4, that kind of thing.
Are you busy? You don't have time.
I was just way too busy to do that. So
So people would like to know the traditions that you write about. Are any of those like real traditions from your upbringing, or that you continue on with your family, or are some of them made up? I.e., do you have a Nutcracker collection?
no, I don't have a Nutcracker collection, but my mother does, and it's ridiculous. And we just like would make fun. Like, I mean, she had so many Nutcrackers. My mother was like Miss Christmas, and she did just move to a retirement community this year. So I'm not sure, like, did she bring the Nutcrackers? She's kind of a hoarder. Like, did she bring the Nutcrackers with her? I should call and ask. There were hundreds, and they're all really beautiful. So probably, not inexpensive, like very beautiful, real Nutcrackers. And, they come in all these different like characters, and she's got them all. And then my stepmother, so I have a mother and a stepmother. My stepmother had the Buyer's Choice Carolers. So just as my mother had the Nutcrackers, Judy, my stepmother, had the Buyer's Choice Carolers. And there was the whole village, that it like used to be at the entrance when you walked into our house. She had a little setup, and then it had to move to the next room. I mean, there were so many Buyer's Choice Carolers. So I used both of those. My mother made really horrible cider. Terrible. Mulled cider, awful. Cloves, can't stand them. Cinnamon sticks, just god awful. So that's where I got Mitzi's terrible cider.
Speaking of, everybody wants you to share the recipe of the Golden Dream.
Oh, the Golden Dream. Okay, so the Golden Dream came from my ex-husband's family. So the Cunninghams, we didn't drink in my house on Christmas. My mother really did not drink. And so we did not drink in my house on Christmas. At Chip's house, my ex-husband, they started drinking the moment they woke up, and only on Christmas did they have this god awful, terrible drink called the Golden Dream. And do I say what's in it? It's like orange juice and like Galliano. I mean, it is so bad. And they also sometimes have silver gin fizzes, but it was like the Golden Dream and the silver gin fizz. And, you were completely toast by noon, but
yeah. Or just start with the Jameson straight.
Yeah, just start.
Just go in. All right. So let's dive into some of the themes, I think. And there's so much to talk about in all 4 books, but and some people have asked me like not to ruin it because they didn't get to book 4 yet. So we'll try. But I think one of the recurring themes for me through all 4 is that over the holiday timeframe, various members of the Quinn family start to question their relationships with their partners, significant others. There's a lot of in and out and, just questioning. And I think it's interesting that that's happening around the holidays, because that's often a time where there's a lot of reflection. And do you want to talk about that? Was that kind of an intentional choice?
Well, I really wanted each of the kids. So the basic premise is the setup. You guys know the setup for the family, right? We have Kelly Quinn, who is on his second wife, Mitzi. Page 1, he finds Mitzi making out with Santa Claus in room 11. And that is basically how I just came up with, like, that's how it's going to start. I'm going to take it from there. So turns out Mitzi's been having this like affair with Santa Claus every Christmas for 12 Christmases. It's especially bad this year, of course, because their son has just gone overseas to Afghanistan. She's very nervous and upset. And then Kelly has 3 children by his first wife, Patrick, who lives in Boston, Kevin, who lives at home, and Ava, who also lives at home. And I needed to give each of the kids a problem. So Patrick is in some financial trouble, legal trouble. And Kevin has gotten the person that works at the hotel, Isabel, pregnant, and Ava is having man trouble, serious man trouble. Yeah. And Ava's man trouble continues throughout 4 books, and she's really all over the place. Actually, if I was going to write a 5th book, I'd be like, is Ava happy? I think she is. Right. And so, and Kevin, of course, has this troublesome ex-wife named Nora Vale, cautionary tale. And the thing I love the best about series and just continuations is Nora Vale is really a very minor character in book 1. And she comes back in book 2, 3, and 4 with a vengeance. And I loved being able to do that. That was so much fun for me. So Nora Vale becomes a character, and Isabel and Kevin, and then Jennifer Quinn, who's married to Patrick, the financial criminal. She starts out as she's absent for almost all of book 1. She's in San Francisco with her mother, and she becomes a major and much beloved character in the later books. So it was really fun for me, because when you write something that is continuing, you need to bring in fresh storylines. And so I always like to use what I have. So I use the minor characters that I've created.
Well, and I mean, Bart, he's such a major role, even from the get-go of book 1, but not to give too much away, but I mean, he's not even there until later.
Right, later.
I'm trying not to give the whole thing away, but so my next question I wanted to ask about kind of the convoluted just interwoven relationships, right? And like so topsy-turvy, right? Like, I mean, poor Kelly Quinn, right? He hears that his wife of 23 plus years is having an affair with Santa, right? I mean, it doesn't even make sense, right? It's comical, right? But then, in book 2, she comes back and says she doesn't love Santa. And so, I mean, did you write it somewhat kind of in jest and kind of, I mean, it's kind of funny at times. You have to laugh. I mean, it's not funny because you're talking about, there's some infidelity and cheating, but at the same time, it's kind of just comical.
Yeah. I mean, I think I intended it to be, Mitzi is a character. I mean, she's a character, but she's like a character. Like she is, and I sort of, what do they say? Mitzi is ditzy. Like she sort of can't quite, it takes her all 4 books just to sort of feel comfortable in her own skin. Yeah. She is, I think, just one of these women who sort of can't, and I know women like this who just can't figure out how to be happy. And she thinks it's this, then she thinks it's that. And I think she thought at some point it was George and it was going to make her life fun, and at the holiday season. So it wasn't like super serious, but every holiday season she would look forward to seeing. It wasn't like they were continuing the affair during the year. They weren't. It was just something that happened when he showed up in his fire truck, in his Santa costume. And then, her relationship with Kelly was troubled. It gets better. And then, life happens. And so that my intent with this series, I haven't really read other Christmas books. My sense of other Christmas books is that they're more like Hallmark movies where, when I thought about sending this to Hallmark, they were like, okay, well, we can't have there's no adultery. There's no drug addiction. There's no, there are no real actual problems of any kind in Hallmark movies. And I was like, okay, well, this is just not for you guys then. I didn't actually realize that, but they have no actual real life problems in Hallmark movies. And my sense is that other Christmas books are sort of like that as well. It's sort of like, who gets sick eating the gingerbread, that kind of thing. And I did not want my Christmas series to be like that. I wanted my Christmas series to be like my summer books, which is people have real problems and they happen during the holidays because that is how real life is. And so that is one of the things about these books, I think, that sets them apart from other Christmas books, is that they deal with real stuff,
Completely. Absolutely. That's so funny. Definitely not a Hallmark movie.
No, not a Hallmark movie.
Oh, that's a good, that should go on the back of one of your books. Like, this is not a Hallmark movie.
Too hot for Hallmark.
All right. So one question I've never asked you, and there is you have had characters in several of your books that have military ties. Do you have an experience? Were you speaking? I don't think none of your children have.
No,
Yeah.
I have a friend on Nantucket named Mary Haft, and at some point when my oldest son was in Little League, so I'm trying to think what year that would have been. It would have been like 2010, 2011. Her oldest son went voluntarily into the Marines and served in Afghanistan, and she talked about it. And it was like an interesting juxtaposition of me like taking Max to the Little League field and then her dropping Michael off, at officer school for the Marines. And so in conversations with her, I sort of formed the character of Bart and her enormous panic. I mean, this is a very privileged family, and Michael chose to go into the Marines and serve. And it was really, I was definitely 1 degree removed, but I was watching and listening, which is what I always do when I'm writing a novel. And then I did use, who else was in the military? I had Bart from Summer of '69. He was in the Army in Vietnam. And I have a very close friend named Charles Marino who served in Vietnam. Chuck was in the Marines, but he gave me all of that information. So I do try and get my military from firsthand sources.
Yeah. A lot of people wanted to know if any of the characters were based on kind of real people that you have encountered. And I have to say that Margaret Quinn in particular for me, I mean, I absolutely envision an anchor, a specific anchor, and her initials are KC. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but.
Oh, that's so funny. I don't know. Margaret Quinn is my favorite character I've ever written. And it's easy for me to say that because I've done 4 books with her, actually 5 books with her, if you guys are savvy.
Rumor.
Yeah, she's in Travels in Paradise. Which now I've probably just ruined that surprise.
Wait, she is? Oh, yes, she is. She's at a restaurant.
She comes in at the very end.
Oh, yes.
She comes to cover the hurricane at the very end. Now I'm sorry, because that was a big spoiler. But Margaret is my favorite character because at the time in 2013, when I started writing this series, I had just gotten divorced and I was away from the kids that Christmas, and it was hard. It was my first Christmas away from them. It was hard. And so I was feeling all of the things that Margaret feels like when she's in New York and her kids are in Nantucket. And, she had she sort of pulled an Adele and like let her ex-husband take the kids up to Nantucket. She stayed and did her career. And she just decided, she didn't want to be married anymore. But she had a lot of mom guilt. And at that time, when I started writing it, I had a lot of mom guilt. And I decided I am going to have Margaret Quinn be the hero, not only in this book, but in this series. And so I really set out to make her like this incredible person, an anchor woman and just mom and human being. And so it was very important to me that Margaret come in and save the day, which she does in book 1. And then, the way we won't say how the series ends, but my favorite moment possibly in any book, and I can't even really talk about it without crying, is the end of Winter Solstice when Margaret and Kelly are together. It is just very, very powerful.
So powerful.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. I loved the part, Margaret is by far my favorite too. I love the part where Drake came in the second novel, right? And
yeah,
that's 2, right? They all blend together.
Yeah.
But it's 2, right? And he surprises her at Stroll. Because he just knows her as Margaret, right? And I mean, I know he knows that she's on TV every night, but for him, she's Margaret, and he had to experience, in particular at the festival, I think of trees, right? Her celebrity and his kind of patience with that. And then he pulls her aside and, proposes. And I don't know, I just loved how you wove in like that celebrity, but that she's also a real person. And, just that's not all who she is, that, she's a mom and she's a grandmother and, and she's a girlfriend, or, she refers to him as her boyfriend at that event and he didn't like it. But, obviously you have to be speaking a little bit from your personal experiences too, because I feel like I can say, I know you're an absolute real person and you're so down to earth, but I think sometimes, right, you must get hit with that celebrity where you get recognized and, you're not necessarily expecting it.
Yeah. I mean, it happens a little bit more now than it did when I started, like when I would have written that. I mean, every year it's a little bit more, I got stopped in the street yesterday. That was funny. I don't always get stopped in the street, but I did get stopped in the street yesterday. And it is very, I mean, Margaret is like so real. And the more like I experience, like, I'm going to call it fame with these like air quotes, because I am not truly a famous person, but I the closer I get to sort of becoming like a famous or a public figure and watching other people, you really realize like you have to hold on to the things that really matter to you, which are your children and your friends and your family and your principles and your work. I mean, those are the things that are important to me. And, being recognized on the street is at the very, very bottom of the list. And I think that's how it is for Margaret too. She, at one point she's like afraid to go into the drugstore to get her wrapping paper because she doesn't want to have a conversation about Donald Trump. And, she doesn't want anyone asking her about politics. And, so, I mean, I think, I was sort of channeling what it would be like.
Yeah.
Everybody knew who you were. It's just strange.
Well, and especially for somebody, like a news anchor like that, because you're literally in your people's homes, every night, probably while they're having dinner, like, I mean, my parents were downstairs watching tonight, right?
Yeah.
So, it's, everyone knows you face, it's a little bit different than, I think other types of celebrity. So anyway, well, she's probably my favorite character of yours, I would have to say as well. So, but I actually really close, near and dear, I think my favorite male character you've ever written is Kelly. I don't know. I love him. And, there's a point in the last book where Ava is pondering, Austria. And I'm like,
right.
Get home. Like, oh my God, get home. And she does, but I'm like, well, I can't even believe you're thinking about this right now. Get home. Go. Yeah. And that whole end, oh my God, woof, tears.
I know.
Yeah. It's gushers.
I know.
So for those of you that haven't finished yet, I'll end it there, but get the Kleenex ready.
Kleenex ready. Oh,
everyone's like, so many tears. So we kind of touched upon this, but a lot of people wanted to know if there were plans, in the works for TV, film. So we've mentioned that. But do you, in writing your characters, and I know I've asked this in the past, but do you envision actors playing any of the parts? Who do you see as Kelly or Margaret?
I mean, what I told the producer, like the only person I have ever, and I don't want a lot of controversy on this. The only person I have ever envisioned as Kelly is Alec Baldwin. That is who I want. I think he would be great. I mean, I've entertained like Kelsey Grammer or like who else would be good? Like,
that's funny. I was George Clooney.
George Clooney's of course fabulous. Michael Keaton. I mean, there are other people who could do it, but I have always in my heart thought it will be Alec Baldwin. And I've had a lot of different thoughts about Mitzi and Margaret recently, because I'm really trying to make things more diverse. I feel like Halle Berry would be like a great Margaret. Like, and I had a really fun idea for Mitzi today, but now it has escaped me who I think would be a good Mitzi.
Sofia Vergara would be hilarious.
She'd be hilarious. So funny. And yeah, so I just think about that, but I've always wanted Alec Baldwin to be Kelly. So Dennis Quaid, someone said Dennis Quaid. Dennis Quaid would be good.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. So I don't think you base any of these characters on real people. Is that fair to say?
No. In book 4, I bring back Fast Eddie from The Rumor, and people, he's not based on a real estate agent. But I did interview a lot of real estate agents to like create Fast Eddie. The thing about putting real people in your novels is as follows. It doesn't work because in a novel, every single sentence is crafted to move the story along. So the characteristics of your characters have to contribute to your storyline. We as human beings, we're not characters. We've got all these various elements and things going on, and we're boring essentially. But we don't fit into fiction. So very rarely will I use, I mean, almost never will I use like a real person, but I can use bits and pieces of people, which is what I do all the time.
Okay, awesome. All right, so how long do I have you for? Because I don't want to keep you.
8 minutes. Should we start talking about Sex in the City? Let's do it.
I think so, right? we have to, don't we?
We have to.
So hopefully everybody, so hopefully we've covered enough of the Winter Street books. I think I'm going to read them now every holiday season.
Aww.
It really got me in the mood, and I know a lot of people have said that. So, and I have like 2 girlfriends that are like clamoring for the full set. So yes, you can have it, but you're giving it back. Right. And there's a strong, you should know, there's a strong following wanting a reprint of the hardcovers.
Okay, I will let my publisher know. I know they're nice to have.
You can't find them.
My hometown bookstore, Nantucket Bookworks, has signed sets if you guys want to order them, and they ship. And I'm going home on Saturday, so I will sign on Monday, and you will still have time to get them before Christmas. If you want the signed set, I really do. It's such a fun thing to do at the holidays because we like to have atmosphere, and it's so fun to be reading something that's set at Christmas.
Yeah, for sure. And these are perfect and they're keepers. So I think everybody wants hardcovers. So talk to your publisher and get another run. All right. So let's talk about the controversy with Sex and the City and the Peloton. Okay. And I guess like, just from your experiences, I have to imagine that when Peloton was approached, because I believe Peloton had to give permission. Probably. I don't know. It's hard to know if it's product placement or not, right? If it was product placement, then
they got the bike. So the story was they got the bike on their own. They did not, Peloton did not send them a bike, which is good because it would have taken 10 weeks for it to get there. So they got the bike on their own, and then they hired Jess King. So Peloton must have known it was going to be in the show.
Had to.
But they apparently didn't know how it was going to be used. I was frankly so excited when he said he's spending time with Allegra, and then you found out it was his Peloton instructor. And I was like, yes, this is so great. They have Peloton in Sex and the City. This is so amazing. And then it just sort of goes downhill. I wasn't quite as horrified as other people were, because we all know, like, riding the bike or doing the tread, like, it makes you stronger. It makes you healthier. Regular people know that. It's, educated people know that. And I did not think, never once, as hard as I've pushed myself, have I ever felt like I was going to die on the Peloton. And so I just feel like it was really overkill, but I thought the response from the Peloton marketing and advertising team was absolutely brilliant.
Brilliant. And I think we've shared it in the group, but we'll share it again, like the commercial or the little snippet that's come out with Big and Jess, and Ryan Reynolds narrating is amazing. So and supposedly that was pulled together in what, 48 hours, I think, or something.
48 hours. I mean, just think about it. They would have had to have called Chris Noth and been like, okay, and Jess King, we need you both in Los Angeles in the studio. Can you do this? And get Ryan, we're going to get Ryan, you know, or it was Ryan Reynolds' idea. Maybe I don't, that was unclear.
Yeah.
And we're going to get him to narrate, and we're going to shoot it. And Chris Noth probably felt so bad about the stock dropping that he was probably like, yes, we should definitely do this.
Right. I mean, if you watched really closely, he was having his symptoms before he got on the bike, and he, you know, he stayed home, and then, you know, he showed he wasn't really having a great workout on the bike because he wasn't feeling great, you know. So it wasn't the bike, but like the bike, right, was the final moment. The bigger question is, why didn't she pick up the phone?
Why didn't she call 911? Are you screaming at I was watching it on my computer. Are you screaming at your computer? Call 911. That's what I would think. I'm like, call 911. What are you doing? And then it was so confusing because like he was alive, like, but also I'm like, is he alive or is he dead? Did he have a stroke? Like I couldn't figure out what was happening.
Yeah. So anyway, so anybody have, I can't watch all the chats because I turned it off, but people are yelling at their computer, and
it was ridiculous that she did not call. I wonder if they're going to address that on Thursday.
Well, I read that, so while the scene was, you know, a minute or two, in theory, it was supposed to be like, you know, 1 second, but it was more of like what, you know, Carrie's experience of that moment. But I can't say that it necessarily came across that way. And that's how they kind of justified that she didn't pick up 911, because there really wasn't time. And I think he was
dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Crazy though, but it's great for Peloton.
Yeah.
And I saw that you posted Peloton. I'll make an infomercial, or
yeah, I did. I wasn't sure like if there would be like an outpouring of like public figures saying I will help do a PSA, but it didn't matter. They got the best. They basically did that and fixed it. But I was just like, you know how much I love my bike. I love my bike. And I just want to say also, and I've met so many amazing people in this group, my friend Donna. So Donna started out as just a reader. And now she's my friend. And I love, like, I have met, and I see MK and Maria are on here. Like I have so many people who started out as readers and now they're friends, and we're all in the Peloton Mom book group. And you, Jen, I mean, I considered you a friend, and like, it's like the greatest way of bringing people together. I'm such a groupie. I really am just such a groupie. And I got to meet Jen Sherman this summer, highlight of my year. She came to Mitchell's bookstore and met me. And, you know, she's this tall, and with her kids and her husband. And I mean, I was freaking out. So
that was your biggest fangirl moment, I think.
I mean, who do you ride? Like, you guys all ride with Cody probably, but like, can you imagine seeing Cody on the street? You'd be so excited.
Yeah, I've gotten to meet them when they came. They did that Boston Marathon. They were doing a series kind of like pre-Boston Marathon, pre-COVID, gotcha. Where they sent them up from New York. So I think I met 3 of them during that time, and that was so fun and so cool, and they're, you know, so awesome. But that was long before the true explosion of Peloton. So now they're like you, celebrities.
I know, they are real celebrities.
Yeah.
Cody, I mean, it's so great.
But all right, well, I know it's almost your bedtime.
Yeah, it is. I can take my earrings out. Thank you guys for watching. Jennifer, thank you for doing, again, an amazing job administering this group and being our fearless leader. And I mean, I'm still waiting for the Wall Street Journal article, right? We're waiting.
Yeah, actually Joe's calling me tomorrow morning with an update. So okay. I'm like, it's kind of timely now.
I know.
They need all the press they can get. So yeah, so hopefully soon.
I know.
I'll message you tomorrow after I talk to Joe, but yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
Well, thank you everyone for joining.
Right,
We'll
bye,
I
guys.
apologize that I think we maxed out on Zoom. So I will get this up on YouTube as quickly as possible for your friends that maybe weren't able to join live. I promise I'll get it up as quickly as possible right now. I will not do anything until I get it up. So thank you, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Thanks, guys.
Happy
Merry
holidays.
Christmas. Happy holidays.
We'll see you in 2022.
You know it.
Bye.